Aydar, thank you very much for joining for our interview. Can you please briefly tell about yourself?
So yes, I'm an SDET. I have 6 years of experience. Primarily, I work in the agile environment, but I'm also familiar with the waterfall. Mm, I was exposed to manual testing, automation testing throughout my career. I can test front end. I can test back end. My main programming language is Java. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know.
How often do you do automation and manual testing?
It definitely begins on the project, like particular sprint they're working on. It gets determined during the test planning. It also depends on the functionality of the features, because not every test is eligible to be automated. Some of them has to be executed manually only. But then if I can see that some test cases are like eligible for the automation, I definitely gonna go ahead and automate it. But of course, I have to also discuss everything with my team.
How do you decide if that test case is automatable or not automatable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends on the if I see that's often repeated test case, it's better, of course, to automate that because it will save so much time.
Do you prefer doing automation testing or manual testing?
I don't have preference, honestly. I do both. I'd like to be a versatile tester, so I could support my team with any needs.
What is the test plan and who creates the test plan?
Test plan. Within my experience, I came to understanding that the test plan is a crucial part of the test process because it specifically maps out the how are you planning to test the features, right? So it includes things like, okay, what environments we're going to be testing it, what's the prerequisites, what assumptions do we have, how are we doing with the team, scheduling, so pretty much things like that. But also it's a great document to communicate with, for example, with the stakeholders, with your manager, and show them how the application will be tested. And then I do write test plans.
You do, right?
Oh, yes.
Usually test plans written by a QA manager. So the QA engineer doesn't write a test plan. They might contribute to test plan, but they do not write a test plan. And usually the test plan is written in the initial phases of the project. Before the project starts, they prepare the test plan, and based on that test plan, they start their testing process. Do you do unit testing?
Particularly in my case, I don't do unit testing. This is what developers do, but I am familiar with the concepts of the unit testing.
So what's the difference between stress testing and load testing?
Stress testing. So I'll start with the load testing. So you're testing your application in the how application behaves during the normal amount of the load. So we just want to make sure that it has a robust good way to say it's reliable in a normal behavior, let's say, right? On the other hand, the stress testing, you want to test your application in the extreme, you just take it to the extreme levels, and you want to see at what point the application is gonna break.
Yep, that's right. What's the difference between white box and black box testing?
White box and black box testing. In my case, I work with black box testing. So that's so what I do is I don't necessarily see the whole logic behind the feature, like how the code looks like, what does it do. I just know what the input has to be and what's the outcome has to be. And then depending on that, I test it. Well, when the white box testing, it also calls unit testing as well. When you have access to the code, you see the implementation of it, and then you test it that way.
Java. In Java, we have a Java class and Java object. What is the Java class and a Java object in Java?
Java class and Java object is one of the fundamental elements of the Java. So it's a blueprint for its objects. So I can create a class with its all instance variables, method that it has to have. I can create a constructor, and then based on that class, I can create its object that will have all of that functionality. So yeah, so it's like object is like a.
Your explanation was right. Like God class is the blueprint and the object is the instance of that class. We create the object out of the class. What is the instance variable and a class variable?
If I have a variable and it's a static variable, I know that that variable belongs to the class, and I have access to that variable through the class name. When the instance variable, I can, for the instance variable, it also belongs to the class, but I can have different other access modifiers to it. I think that's where I'm getting lost.
Okay, so instance variable is the non-static variable in a class.
Non-static variable.
And the class variable is the static variable in the class.
I was pretty close.
So what is the difference between the instance variable and a static variable? Static variable will have only one copy shared among all objects.
Right.
And the instance variables will have their own a separate copy for every object we create out of that class.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that we talked about recently.
Yeah. What is the final keyword in Java?
Final keyword. Final keyword. You can. There's 3 cases you can use the final keyword. You can use it with a variable. You can use it with a method, and the class. So, in case of using it with a variable, it means that that variable get initialized, and then it cannot get overridden, if I can say it right. Like you cannot reinitialize. Yes. In case of the method, so that method cannot be overridden. It's the final variation of it, right? And the class. So if you have a final class, that class cannot be inherited. So it cannot be a superclass for some other class.
Cannot be child for another class.
The opposite way.
That's right. That's great. Thank you. What is the static polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism?
Static polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism. Static. There's also different names for it. Compile time, compile runtime. So that one is a static polymorphism. And then the other one is compile time and runtime, like the dynamic runtime. So that is the I'm getting lost in my words. So let me just go to the explanation. So compile time polymorphism, it's a static polymorphism. So so in that case, I can have, for example, different methods. They have the same name, but they can have different parameters. So that's the example for the static polymorphism. When dynamic polymorphism, it's about overriding the method. So let's say like a parent class had the method, and then child class inherits that class, and then in the child class I can override that method. So that's and it happens. No, I'm not gonna go in there. So that's all I know about it. Yeah.
So static polymorphism is another name, is a compile time polymorphism.
Yeah.
Dynamic polymorphism is a runtime polymorphism. And what's a static polymorphism? Static polymorphism, when the method knows what method it will be called at the runtime. It will be pointing to the same method at the compile time, and it will be using the same method at the runtime. And we usually achieve the static polymorphism with the help of the method overloading. What's a method overloading? Where a method has the same name, but with the different parameters.
Right.
And the dynamic polymorphism, which is a runtime polymorphism, where the method is pointing to different method at the compile time, and it runs a overridden method at the runtime. And we usually achieve the dynamic polymorphism with the help of the method overriding. These are two different polymorphism types in Java. Can you tell me what is the garbage collector in Java?
Garbage collector. I really like it because in my head, when there is let's say I have a string, and then I reinitialize the string, so pretty much there's another string is created because string is immutable, and then the one that is not used anymore, there's a garbage collector. It pulls up, picks it up, takes away. So that's a function of it.
Exactly, that's right. So when we create multiple objects in our heap memory, and if there is an object that's not being used, pointed from any other references, in that case, the garbage collector will clean them and will get out and get rid of the unused objects in our heap memory.
Yes.
Thank you. So what's the difference between abstract class and interface in Java?
I know that the interface is it's a helpful classes that that you can use. So class, let's say when we're talking about the parent class, child class can inherit only one parent class. But let's say if you have the interface, one class can have connection with a lot of interfaces, and then those interfaces can have methods that can be helpful for the class. Abstract class, in my understanding, it's a class that can have, you just declare some method, but there's not necessarily like a code implementation goes with it. And then when you use an abstract class, you have like some kind of functionality, right? And then you implement the class, or then you implement that method in the class that you are using it in.
Okay, that's about interface. Interface gives you an ability to have a multiple inheritance, to inherit multiple interfaces from a class. That's one of the biggest advantage of the interface. While if you have abstract class, you can inherit only one abstract class from a class.
Only one abstract class from a class.
Yeah, but multiple interface can give you ability to achieve the multiple inheritance, where a class can inherit multiple interfaces.
Right.
Another difference is interface is a full abstraction, while abstract class is a partial abstraction. So in interface, all the variables are constant, which means public, static, final, and methods are public, abstract by default in the interfaces. But in abstract class, we can have a regular variables or constant variables. We can have any number of abstract or non-abstract methods in the abstract class. And both of them, abstract class and interface, cannot be instantiated, which means we cannot create an object out of the interface and abstract class. Coming to Selenium, what's the difference between absolute XPath and relative XPath?
Absolute XPath and relative XPath. Absolute XPath starts from the beginning. So it always starts with the HTML tag. So you just trace from the start to the end of the location of the element that you're looking for, versus versus the relative XPath is you start from the parent tag of the element that you're looking for. You can instead of like starting from the start, you're locating the parent tag and you start building from there.
Okay, that's good. What's the difference between CSS locator and the XPath locator?
XPath locator, this is what I mentioned earlier. You work with a like a HTML tree, or if you can call it like that. When the CSS, it's a spatial indicator of the element, and you use the CSS for it.
We talk about the locator. So there's the CSS locator and the XPath. In CSS using CSS locator is a little bit faster than the XPath. But what's the benefit of the XPath? XPath, you can go from parent to child web elements, and from child to parent web elements. That's one of the biggest benefits of the XPath. So how do you upload a file in Selenium?
Upload file in Selenium. Don't remember, I'll be honest.
Okay. So when we upload the file in Selenium, we use send keys methods, and we provide the path of that file in the argument of that send keys method. So how would you handle the scroll up and scroll down in Selenium WebDriver?
I could use the method. To one of the options, I could use the method that is scroll to the element. The other way, I could use JavaScript for that.
So you will use JavaScript executor.
Executor, yes, correct.
Okay. All right. So what is the testng XML file in testng framework?
Testng XML files function is allowing to run the tests by their group tags. Otherwise, if there is no XML testng XML file, you pretty much you can run only one class at once, one class at a time. So yeah, that's the main functionality of that.
Good.
Yeah.
So testng XML file is where we configure what classes and what groups we want to run in our framework, and we can run it through our testng XML file. What's a test-based class, and why we need the test-based class?
Test-based class. We use it to set up our environment for our test cases. It will include before and after annotations, where we could set up all the basics that is needed, like set up our driver, set up our implicit weight if it's needed. So yeah, it definitely depends, but like those are most common things that you have to set up. Or after method, you normally you can quit your browser. So that's what I have in my case.
Okay. What is the page object model design pattern?
Page object design part. Page object model design pattern is it's allows me to manage my needed web elements in one class. So per each page, all the web elements that I'm using on that page are kind of like encapsulated into that class. I use a page factory object for that. I also and I just include one by one all the web elements, and then they're easily accessible. I just let's say I'm working with with a page, and then I just call the object of that class of that page, and then through that page I can access all the elements, or maybe like some methods that I need, things like that.
Great. You mentioned configuration.properties file. What it is? What do you have in the properties file?
I normally I have all the needed URLs. I have my test data like passwords, logins. I also have property for my browsers. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Usually store their configuration data
Yes.
in the properties file. About the SQL, what is the primary key and foreign key in SQL?
That's related to the tables. So each table can have its primary key, which is it's a unique identifier for each row that you have. So yeah, let's say like example, it's a students, right? Students table, and then each student will have its own ID that is unique. And let's say we have another like class table, right? And then that class will have its own unique identifier, like a class ID. So it's native to that table, and then it also have a you also can include the IDs of the all the students that are taking that class. So it will be in that case it will be a foreign key to the class table.
That's good. Thank you. What is the subquery in SQL?
Subquery. It's a query within a query. That was easy.
Let's say we have a table. And in the table we have a student name and student grade.
Student grade. Okay.
Yeah. So can you and let's say we have one more column that's a student class, right? This batch, let's say the batch of the student, what batch the student is studying in. So can you write me a query that will calculate the average grade for every batch in this table? So let's say we have a student's name, the grades for each student, and we will have a batch numbers for the students. Batch 1, 2, 3. So we want to find out, let's say batch 1, we have an average of grade 85. Batch 2 has an average of grade 65. Batch 3 has an average of grade 90. So we want to write that queries that will calculate the average grade for every batch.
Key functions, there's going to be average. Let me start there. Average. And then it's a aggregate function. So I have to also group my students by the batch. There's no having needed. So yes. So I would start there and I would just play around with it. But I count average of the grades and then group by the batch number.
Okay, that's good. But can you give me exact syntax? How would you
Exact syntax. Oh my god. Okay, select average. Oh, I don't remember average, and I think in the parentheses I have to have the grades. And then from, and then let's say it's the name of the table is students, right? From students, and then group by batch.
Good. Let me tell you it exactly. Almost correct. Select batch number, comma, average grade. That will be in parentheses of the average method.
Okay.
And then from, let's say, students table, group by the batch number.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I was close.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. So in REST API, what is the 400 status code?
The REST API, it's a bad request status code.
What's the difference between 401 and 403 status code?
401 is non-authorized status code, and then 403 is authentication error, or the other one is I forgot the name of it. Would you remind me, please?
Forbidden.
Forbidden, yes, correct.
So what's the difference between those?
The difference is, let's say, the 401, it's the issue with a token. It's a good example when with the issue with the login. And first of all, it's all like a user error responses that you get. And then the 403 is forbidden. Let's say different accounts has their own like authorities, right? So when you're logging with a certain account, you can do certain things, and then you cannot do certain things. So if your account is not eligible to like edit some information, some data, right? You will get that response back, the 403, forbidden.
Good. What's that serialization and deserialization?
That's the process that is helpful when you're working with the payloads. You technically, for each payload, so payload is consists of the key and the value, right? Let's say, and then you can create a class for it. And then you convert it to the string, and then you can send it with your API request. So yeah, we call it POJO. And then deserialization is the opposite. You convert your string back to the JSON.
Yep. So serialization is the converting Java object, which is POJO, to JSON.
JSON.
And deserialization is converting JSON into the Java object, which is POJO.
Right.
Great. The last question. What are your strengths and the weaknesses?
So there's a lot of companies have this concept that calls like a furious feedback. I'm always happy to give a positive feedback, or I don't have problem to receive a feedback. Either it's a negative or the positive, because I know it's very helpful for the growth and development. But when it comes to the giving feedback to my peers, I don't want to say negative, but I see there's something could be improved. I always have a hard time to it. I always look for the right approach. and it can take me some time to kind of like get to the point. But then with the time I realized, okay, I actually don't have it. I don't have to like wrap that into the like I'm giving you feedback kind of candy, you know. I can it could be just like a conversation where I get to talk to my peer and just ask a lot of questions and then try to understand the logic behind their work, and from there to like build up the ways how we can do something together, so it's helpful for me and for them, and it's understandable. So yes, definitely, I always try to smooth all the like sharp corners, but it's just because I care about my relationship with my teammates, and I never want to just jump in to giving them feedback. Things like that. Yes.
Good.